Do 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 do. Well, good morning. It is time for a bedhead chat with Chad. Oh, it is once again 7 a.m. here in Alaska, and let me tell you, Alaska is amazing, but there's definitely some downfalls to Alaska. One of them is it's only 7 a.m. here, but most people that are listening or on board right now, listening to it live, are in the East Coast or the eastern side of the United States, where it's 11 a.m. Or in Chicago, I've got some Chicago followers that watch live. It's 10 a.m. Most of my Alaska people, they don't watch this until they get up later in the day, uh, which is about 11 a.m. for them here in Alaska, 4 hours from now. Even trying to do stocks, I have to get up at midnight for the pre-trade, which is 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or even for the 9:30 bell, it's 5:30 a.m. Or even trying to do business, most businesses work on Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to get a 9 a.m. call to get early, you gotta stink and get up at 5 a.m. here, or even to call my dad who goes to bed at 8 o'clock at night. If I'm going to work and I get out of work at 3:30, I got to rush home just in time to get a hold of my dad to call. But that's enough of that. I still love Alaska. I got a few more months left here, assuming that I can get out due to the COVID. But today's topic is elevator music. So if you've got a word, the topic here, I'm getting high tech. Watch this. Boom. Elevator music. That is the theme now um, for today's topic. So if you got a word, throw out a word for elevator music, starting with a story from Cornerstone. That was a word that was thrown out yesterday. Elevator music, just so you know, if somebody said Glenn Kaiser when the word elevator music was thrown out, Glenn Kaiser is the lead singer originally from Resurrection Band or Res Band back in the day. He's now a guy, he lives in Chicago. He's actually a covenant pastor who is a blues singer. He's amazing. This guy can take junk. Oh, I guess I'm telling the story about Glenn Kaiser now. He can take junk. We were in California at a covenant pastors meeting. The first thing we ever went to for the covenant in San Diego, and they had an open mic night. And he found a piece of wood, two nails, and a piece of wire. And he built his own. I wouldn't even call it a guitar, but all he had is wire, a piece of plywood, not even wood, just junk wood that he found, and then he played a whole song with just wire, not guitar string, just wire. And this guy he's amazing. But it was funny because we were walking around, and Glenn Kaiser is pretty well known. And when you go to these events, everybody wants to talk to Glenn Kaiser because you know him as Glenn Kaiser, you know him as Res Band. And Dan and I were just walking, and we've met Glenn Kaiser before. When we were at Cornerstone, I got his autograph because he was there for Resurrection Band or Res Band, depending on how you know him. And Dan and I were walking down, and this was our first time meeting anyone from the Covenant. And all of a sudden, this guy hunts us down. He goes, "Hey, hey, hey!" And I want to meet you. And he comes up. It's Glenn Kaiser, and he wants to meet us. Well, actually, he didn't want to meet me. He wanted to meet Dana because Dana with her dreads. If you don't know my wife has dreads. You think my hair is a little interesting? Dana, in and out, as she's got dreads, and she had full head dreads there. And Glenn sits there talking to her like, "Oh man, we need more people like you in the covenant," and actually got to the point where we had to break away from Glenn because he would not stop talking. So here all these people are trying to chase down Glenn to get his autograph and talk to him, and Glenn's chasing Dana down. So that was kind of interesting. But I remember at Cornerstone, I had this hat. It's this big red hat, and we're at Cornerstone. This is one of the things I did is we went around, and people always wanted my hat. So we would go, and I had a group of guys, and they'd say, "Hey, can I have your hat?" And I'm like, "I'll tell you what, for $1, you can guess the number 1 through 10. If you guess the number, you can have the hat." So they'd like, okay, and they'd always scheme with their friends like they're going to give this person the number. So I'd have them put the money in the hat, and then I'd tell the one person the number, and they'd always like, "Oh." So I'd always go like, "Here's the number," and I whisper in their ear, 1.379. and they'd be like, "Oh, that's not fair," blah 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 blah. And like I said, a number between 1 and 10. They were gonna cheat. I cheated. But the story behind the hat was a live music festival back in the late '90s, early 2000s. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When I was first a youth pastor, so I started becoming a youth pastor in '97, '98. So yeah, '97. I digress. Doesn't matter. So and when I was first a youth pastor, a lot of youth pastors when they first start out, they want to use hype, to make friends and to be good with the kids, and they always have some kind of gimmick. And my gimmick was this big red hat, and that's back when VeggieTales were really cool. So I was a VeggieTales superhero. I had a cape and this big red hat and all this. And this big red hat though got me a lot of attention. Like from the stage, all these bands would point me out. The I was called Tex. I was called the Foam Ranger. All these different things. So people wanted to talk to me, and then bands started to want to sign it. So I had all these signatures from bands. Well, later in the week, the first year, Audio Adrenaline got there, and they heard about this guy with the big red hat. So their manager comes to me and hunts me down and said, "Hey, we heard about you and your big red hat." And Mark, who was the lead singer from Audio Adrenaline, he goes, he wants your hat. He wants to know if you'll we'll give you a copy of every CD and whatever you want for this hat. I'm like, no, I don't want to give up my hat. So I made him a deal if I could meet him, because back then I was still starstruck. This is before I owned my club and all that. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll let him borrow my hat for the concert if I can meet him backstage after the show. And then so he makes some deal, blah blah blah. He does it. So then he uses my hat. And then, so I give him my hat. So I'm in the concert, and the whole concert, everyone's excited. My whole youth goes, "Oh, Mark's going to wear your hat." And the whole concert, everybody hears like, "Where's your hat?" Because they all knew me by then. "Where's your hat?" I was like, "Oh, Mark has it." And the whole concert, there's no hat. I'm thinking, "Oh man, I just got conned out of my hat." And this seemed really legit. And then here comes the encore for Audio Adrenaline, and here comes Mark out with this giant hat on his head. Now, the problem was Mark. Now, if you don't know Audio Adrenaline is probably in those times, up until they finished, they were one of the top bands in the Christian music industry, like top notch. I mean, Newsboys, DC Talk, Audio Adrenaline were the top bands that existed in those days. Here comes Mark with wearing my big foam red hat out for his encore. And the funny thing is, my head was a little bit bigger than Mark's head. So he comes out here, he's rocking, he's got this big red hat, and he's just rocking out and doing this song, and then the hat just keeps slipping down his head, and he would just keep lifting it up, and the hat would keep slipping down his head, and he'd keep lifting it up. And finally, near the end of the song, the hat just kind of keeps slipping down, so he just lets it slip down. So this hat is over Mark's head, so he's singing with the hat over his head, so he just sings through the microphone, through his head. And so he's just a headless horseman with this hat over his head. And here's Mark with my big red hat singing through the hat. So it was just this awesome show. Well, afterwards I get to go up and I got to meet Mark and I got to meet the band and they all signed my hat. Well, this became a thing. So here I am. Now I'm the Audio Adrenaline hat guy. And actually, if you have the video from there was an Audio Adrenaline Live, the only VHS tape that was made, the Audio Adrenaline Live, the back of the video VHS tape has a picture of Mark with my hat wearing it. But so the next time I went to the Audio Adrenaline, to the Alive Festival that year, and I know some of you just lost me, but you'll have to go check live and watch it later. But so the next year when Audio Adrenaline shows up, everybody's waiting in line for them to show up. And like I said, I'm still a fan here. Everyone's waiting to see them. Audio Adrenaline pulls up with their van, and everyone's like, "Oh, look, it's Audio Adrenaline." And at the same time that everyone's saying, "Oh, look, it's Audio Adrenaline," Audio Adrenaline's looking at the van, "Oh, look, it's the guy with the big red hat." So that was kind of fun. So my hat became somewhat famous. So it was kind of crazy what a big red hat could do. But yeah, that was my music story with Audio Adrenaline. So it is time. Let me get a little high tech here. You ready for this? Watch this. I'm a one-man media crew. So it is time to Give me a word. Give me some words out there. Let me see if anybody's already given me some words. Been at work for 4 hours. Could use good words to wake me up. Dustin. Hey, Dustin. I need some words. Now, remember, today is all music related. So any word you give me, I'm going to tell you a music story. But yeah, so here's the thing. And I'm going to give credit to a guy named John, which you've heard stories, Pepper. I'll get to that, Pepper. So a guy named John at the Alive Festival back in the early 2000s now, he would do anything. This is the guy that I told stories about, so many stories about already. And before this was a thing, and I'm telling you, we'd never seen it anywhere in our lives, he took his white t-shirt and he wrote on free hugs. And he went around this festival and he started to get free hugs. And by the end of the festival, everyone was wearing shirts that said free hugs. Well, the next year we come back to the Live Festival, they were selling shirts that said free hugs. And it became this huge thing. Now, I'm saying that my guy John has started the whole trend of free hugs because it was nowhere. Now we've always been we were out and about. We go places, we go to things, and nowhere ever did I see this big trend of free hugs. But John Troutman. Oh, I said his last name. Scratch that. No one ever heard that before. You did not hear that. John, my guy John, Big John, Little John. He started this free hug thing and it went viral. So you got to give credit where credit is due. John started free hugs. So the word pepper, oh my gosh. And I got to make that music related. All right. So then here's what I'm going to do with pepper. Salt and pepper. So there was this band named Fillmore. Now, when we had the Eclipse, we used to cook for all of the bands. So one of the things that the bands liked about us is, you see, when bands would come in, they're so used to a few normal things, which would be fried chicken from the store, lasagna from Stouffer's, like Gordon's Food Service, or all those basic food service lasagnas, salad, and just your basic standard meals. Every day they'd come in and get the same stinking thing. So what we did is we went all in. I personally was known for my flank steak. I would buy flank steak in bulk. Now, to be honest, I had a hookups with the market back when it was Village Market in Dowagiac, when the flank steak was a steak that not everybody would buy. So when it would be sitting there for a while, I would have the manager would call me and say, hey, Chad, I'll sell it to you in bulk. This is not old. This is just like it's getting there. And I'd buy it in bulk. I'd throw it in the freezer. So I'd have this amazing flank steak. And I would cook it on the grill. And I'd have a person named Sam usually help me cook. And we would have a great dinner. Well, the time that Fillmore came, actually Fillmore was a band pretty well known, but I booked Fillmore for Kylie, my daughter's birthday. She wanted Fillmore for her birthday. That's what her request was. See, because what we used to do when Kylie and Jeremy were younger, every day we would do this song. It was called the Fishy Song. And actually, if you were at Kylie's funeral, we played the Fishy Song for her funeral. We would do this kitty mosh pit where it was a song, sometimes I wonder if I'll ever find her. And then it would just kick into this mosh pit. And we'd have this little kitty mosh pit and have fun. Well, Kylie wanted that for her birthday. So I booked a band for Kylie's birthday. Well, this band comes in and they've gotten bigger and better. And I booked them early. And I got them in, and I heard a rumor that they don't play the Fishy Song anymore. I'm getting to pepper. Don't worry, Taylor. I'll get to the pepper part. So I booked them, and then I hear a rumor that they're too good. Even though this song made them really popular, they're too good. They become musically talented, and they don't play that song anymore. So I called their manager ahead of time, and I affirmed that yes, they will play that song, because I said, quite frankly, I'm booking this band for that one song. I said, this is for my daughter's birthday. I said, I'm doing the whole show, but it's ultimately about that one song. They said, oh, no, they'll play it. Well, in the meantime, I'm working to help my in-laws with a restaurant that they had just started. So I'm working all day at a restaurant, coming back and running the club. So I just get back in the restaurant. Fillmore shows up with their big truck. They're just starting to unload, and I walk up and say, hey, my name's Chad, blah, 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 blah. I said, hey, so just so you know, this is for my daughter's birthday. I said, and I just want to affirm with you guys that you are going to do the Fishy Song. And they looked at me and said, oh, no, we're not doing the Fishy Song. I'm like, stop! Said, nope, stop. And they said, we don't do the fishy song anymore. I was like, okay, well then you're not playing. They said, what are you talking about? I said, no. I said, listen, you don't understand. I'm paying $500 because I got them really cheap. I said, I'm paying $500 for the fishy song. And they're like, well, we're not going to do the fishy song. I said, well, then you might as well not even bother unpacking your truck because you're not playing. And I mean, I was really ornery because it was a big deal because I promised my daughter that the fishy song, we called it the living room, was going to be in her living room. So, long story short, we talked them into the deal was this. It was a really bad scenario that turned into really good. They weren't going to play the fishy song for the concert, but they were going to play a live special party after the show just for Kylie. So here's the pepper part. So meanwhile, while I'm doing all this, because I was working at the restaurant, I did not have time to cook my own meal. So some of the kids, some of the youth did the meal that day. Well, they made spaghetti. And they made really good spaghetti, except for the fact, with salt and pepper, there's the pepper. They made really good spaghetti, except for the fact that they burnt the sketty. And so we had burnt sketty, as they called it. And so we go in there and we eat this wonderful meal, which was still good. And at that time, we had this wall, and we ended up having to paint over because we had so many bands that wrote on it. The bands would come in, they draw something, or they sign it. We had this band wall that all the bands would just come in. And Fillmore, at the end of the night, because it was such a good night when it was all done, Fillmore came in and they wrote, and we have a picture of it. They came in, we saw, we ate the spaghetti, and they drew this picture of a spaghetti pot, like smoking. But so at the end of the night, it was really cool. After they all left, they let all of our staff, because we had our core kids, they let all of our staff stay in, and they did a concert. They did the fishy song. And when they saw Kylie and Jeremy and I doing what we did, they said, is there any other song you want us to play? And of course, the next song I picked out, and they're like, oh man, we don't do that one either. But they did it. So we had this special private concert for Fillmore for this group that didn't want to ever do these songs again. They ended up doing a private special concert with the fishy song just for Kylie. Which, like I said, if you were at the funeral and we played that song, now you got a little more deeper into that song and why that song was so important. Oh, Dave Fleischer, he put the word Portage Lake. Okay, so I see Portage Lake. Portage Lake. How do you even know about Portage Lake, Dave Fleischer? But I'll go there. So Portage Lake is a campground up in Michigan. And boy, did we have some fun up in Portage Lake. That is a Covenant Bible camp. It is, I don't even remember what town it's in. But any place there's a camp, there are stories to tell. So that's junior high, senior high, all sorts of camps there. But one of the stories, I'll tell you a good story first. Well, there's all sorts. Oh, Dave, you did go. That's right. You took the. So I'll tell you a Dave story. This is one of the many Daves. We went in the spring, and it's far enough north that it gets kind of cold. And one of the things I like to do when I go to Portage Lake as a youth pastor, I went as a youth pastor and as a pastor, is disappear. That's just one of my things. I bring up volunteers, I bring up other leaders, and I get up there and I get the kids all up there and I get them all into groups with other leaders, and then I disappear because one thing Portage Lake has is a nice little coffee shop. And I don't disappear for the coffee necessarily. I disappear so that the kids, because I usually have a bond with all the kids anyway, so that they can have a bond with the leaders. Because I really believe, and this is in all seriousness, I really believe that the more bonds kids have with adults, the better the kids are in life. I got this rule, it's called the 8-to-1 rule. There should be for every 8 kids, there should be 1 adult, but for every 1 kid, there should be 8 adults in their life. But yeah, Dave, I was at the cafe all day, you are correct. Except for when it mattered, I was there. But so Dave, he was brave enough to go polar bear swimming, and I got it on video. It was quite cold. It was in the 30s, low 30s, maybe up to the 40s. You got all these kids that he talked into with some help of the instigator in the group, and I don't know who that would be. but jumping into this ice cold lake, which is right off, it was a bay right off of Lake Michigan. So imagine the temperature of the water, and this is early spring, jumping into the polar bear water. Uh, yeah. But Portage Lake was an amazing place. It is an amazing place. I remember taking laser tag. We have this really cool, it's called Light Strike laser tag. And we would take, our group would always take our stuff with us. And I'm a sniper, and I would sit back in the back of the trees in the long field, and it would be me versus everybody. And guess who always won? Because they'd come running at me, and I'd be sitting there like, because my sniper said at one shot kill. But one of the things we did, and this kind of was good and bad, uh, our group, I always taught my group how to win when it comes to pranks. Because, you know, you've learned from, if you've been a follower if you have been a follower of this Bedhead Chat with Chad, we would always cause trouble with the other youth groups. So the very first year we were there, we didn't know any other youth groups. What we noticed that there was Whitehall and First Cov in Grand Rapids already had this thing going. So we started a war between the two of them. So we would go in and we'd prank one of them, and they'd assume it was the other one that did it. So we started a prank war between the two of them, and we escalated this prank war without them doing actually anything. So one year, the last year we were there, we started a prank war between all the cabins, and unfortunately, we put everybody's stuff out from one of the cabins in Detroit. We put all their stuff outside, and then we went to play. It was during a dodgeball tournament in the gym. And while we were there, unfortunately, we didn't know it, but that it snowed 4 inches of snow. So all their stuff got covered in 4 inches of snow. And this is at a fall retreat, which we had no idea that it was going to snow. But yeah, we caused a little trouble at Portage Lake. But that's not music related. Let's go back to music. So, you know, when we owned the Eclipse, we were a club that reached out to people that you could say, if you looked at them, they could scare you. But they were really, really good people. But that was kind of our heart, was to reach out to people that, some people called them street kids. Some people called them, you know, back in those days, goth was still a big thing. You'd see people with spikes on their necks and on their wrists and black hair, and punk with mohawks. And, you know, we had this one guy, his name was Buddha, who came in one day. He was his first time in, but the only reason he came in was because he planned to hurt somebody. And he had some weapons on him. But one of the things about our group, we had this rule that we started, use common sense. And it worked like this: don't make us make any more rules. That was rule number 2. So people police themselves, really. People didn't want us to shut down because we made it real easy. You cause trouble, we shut down. So they let us know pretty quickly that Buddha was there to cause trouble. So first time he came in, we went and checked him for weapons. He had weapons. We said, "Hey, sorry, Buddha, you can't come back for a while." Well, things changed. Buddha comes back for a big concert, big show we're having, like mosh pit, stage dive, and the whole works. Well, we let Buddha in, and Buddha ends up in the middle of the mosh pit. And so Buddha is still like kind of upset with me because, you know, I told him to leave, and so here he's back. So I'm the pit boss, and if you know what that means I'm in the mosh pit doing all this, but I'm kind of controlling the flow of things. So I'm keeping it up, but I'm not letting it get too crazy, but I'm not letting it get too boring either. But I see Buddha in the mosh pit, so I stop the mosh pit in its tracks, and I get Buddha and I frisk Buddha in the mosh pit, checking for weapons. And then the rest of the mosh pit, Buddha tries to take me out. I mean, I got beat pretty well in the mosh pit sometimes. But you know what? After that, Buddha became my buddy because I took the beating. So Buddha now became, I won his respect in the mosh pit. But I'll tell you what, I could write a book about all the things that happened in the mosh pit. Besides the fact that I had my nose broke almost, 8 times for sure, maybe 9. Got clotheslined, lots of stories from the mosh pit. But imagine a guy that's 300 pounds stage diving. Actually, we had a guy once that was about 450 pounds. We had him stage dive, and it worked. Yeah. So, well, you know what? We got the last 5 minutes here, and I need one more word, and I will close out today's version of Bedhead Chat with Chad. You got an opportunity for an incriminating story from Chad. You get one incriminating story per day. So if somebody's got a word that wants to trigger me on something that you know about me, I will do it. Marcellus. Oh, let's see. Do I have something bad for Marcellus? Dustin, what are you getting at? I probably have a lot of things bad for Marcellus. I just can't think of anything right now that's bad for Marcellus. So, oh, okay. Well, we lived in Marcellus for quite a few years, and we used to Gross Olympics. In Marcellus, we had a house that was right on the edge of the railroad tracks. And this is way back. This is the bad Chad. This is the evil Chad. We used to have parties every single weekend. I was the manager of a restaurant, and as I was a general manager, and every weekend, Friday and Saturday, we would have people after we closed the restaurant. This is like 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. They would come to our house, and usually we just, we had a rule: if you drank, you didn't leave. We'd have a party in our backyard, bonfires, the whole works. But one thing we started to do was start to mess with the railroad tracks. We would go down by the train and party by the railroad tracks. Dumb, yes, I know. There was a road right next to the railroad tracks that we could drive down. Now, we didn't drive while we were drunk, but we would go down there and we would party. And let's just say the moon came out multiple times. We'd say hi, because the train would come by every 10 minutes. Well, one day we were driving down, because we would use that road, because there was a road that you could shortcut from Marcellus all the way to our house. Although it was not legal, we would drive from Marcellus all the way to our house, because it was a lot quicker. It was just a straight shot to our house. Well, we're driving one day, and the train's coming, and we're like, hey, let's moon the train. So we get out, and then all of a sudden we're like, okay, something's going on here. So we stop, and we park, we turn the lights off. Well, next thing you know, we get pulled over. Did you know there's such a thing as the train police? Well, yes, there's the train police. So we got pulled over by the train police, and we just played it really smart. And they pulled us over, and we were like probably 2 miles from our house. And this was on a Friday night. This is a night I wasn't working. And we got pulled over, and they asked us for our driver's license. And I said I didn't have my driver's license. They asked me what your name was, and I said, my name is Todd Benkert. I gave him my brother's information, his birthday, and all that stuff. So sorry, Todd. And I wasn't driving, so it was okay without my license. And then they continued to tell us that they were out there looking, because they had reports. They had reports of people partying on the tracks and mooning the train operators. So they said, well, clearly it's not you guys. So they let us go with a warning. They took our names, and if we were ever caught on the tracks again, it was a federal offense, because these were actually federal cops that were out on the tracks looking for the people partying and mooning the train operators, because it is a federal offense to moon train operators. So we lucked out that we were not partying that night, because we would have, who knows what would have happened. So here's the moral of the story. Do not moon train engineers. It is a federal offense. More of the moral of the story is just don't moon anybody, okay? We were young, we were dumb, we were drinking, we did stupid things. Don't do stupid things, okay? And just to tie it into music, we had the music blasting. There was music playing, believe me. There was Van Halen, there was Def Leppard, there was Motley Crue, there was Kiss. The music was blasting. So it wasn't elevator music, believe me. So, hey, this is one more episode of Bedhead Chat with Chad. Hey, if you got some stories to tell, we are ready. We are set up to have somebody join us live for a shared Bedhead Chat with Chad. All you need to do is message me. Let me know, and we can set up even tomorrow, as early as tomorrow, for an interview, a live mixed conversation with Bedhead Chat with Chad for story time, Chad and somebody. maybe one of the many Daves out there, or somebody that wants to join me live tomorrow, 7 a.m. Alaska time, or 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. Chicago time, 9 a.m. Omaha time, or 8 a.m. California time. But it has been Bedhead Chat with Chad, blah, 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 blah. Bedhead Chat with Chad time. Hey, it's Easter week. It's Holy Week. Even though we talk about things that aren't so holy, just know that I am a redeemed person, that God is good anyway, no matter how bad I can be or I am, God is still good. I will see you guys tomorrow morning. If you want to be on Bedhead Chat with Chad live, get a hold of me through private messenger. If you have my text me. Otherwise, peace out. We'll see you later. Have a great day.